All right. We on?
Yes, we're on.
All right. Hey, everybody, what's up? Sorry for the little late start here, but we got John driving things today, so thank you very much, John, for doing this. He's doing it for the first time. But welcome to episode 4 of Climbing the Ladder. I'm your host, ChanmanV, and as always, joining me, co-hosting with me, is John Clark from COO of CSN, and hopefully Ben Nickel will be dropping in sometime within the show. But today we got an amazing show planned for you guys. We have two great guests. First off, we have from Beyond Gaming, CMO Aaron Hassell. How's it going, Aaron? Oh, didn't hear you there.
Oh, sorry about that. I muted.
I think you're on mute, buddy.
Oh, good.
That's right. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
And
Thanks for having me.
Also we have the one, the only Destiny, Stephen Bond II. Hey. And for those of you just tuning in, never seen Climbing the Ladder, what we do on the show is we go in depth into issues in the esports community, and really get our hands dirty and really dig in a lot of details. And really the point is to educate the community as to maybe what things are going wrong right now, and maybe what we can do to help solve these problems and progress as a community. So the thing that we do, the thing that we like to do every show is lead off with maybe some misconceptions that the two guests think that are going on in the community right now are just really prevalent, that they think that they should get cleared up, or just really things that people really have wrong right now, and maybe we can clear it up. So if either of you guys have any of those kind of misconceptions that you guys want to discuss, why don't we bring it out now? Like, either of y'all have anything like any misconceptions you guys want to talk about?
I think that's a pretty broad. I mean, that's a really broad subject.
Okay.
I think there could be a lot of misconceptions from any particular area. I think one we could probably bring up is one that's been having a lot of conversation lately. If you watch different shows like The Executives or a lot of those different shows, they'll talk about like getting sponsors and like how you're approaching sponsors or sponsorships in that general. And one of the most common misconceptions that I see that people continuously do and kind of don't catch up with is that viewership equals sponsor dollars. And I think that's a huge conception. It's a factor of sponsor dollars or doing business with another company. But I think what a lot of people don't really get to is that the important thing there when you're dealing with sponsors or approaching sponsors or going into those things is really you need to start looking at conversion. It's not about how much exposure you can get to somebody, because a sponsor can invest X amount of dollars and purchase a whole lot of media buys, ad banners all over the place. It's about how many of the users that you can reach, or your reach that you can actually convert to a consumer for that business that you're looking at, or convert them into just a consumer in general.
I see. I mean, that's so like I guess when you're talking about particular sponsors, like, I don't know, for instance, let's just say Razer or Steel or something. You're talking about like it's all about how many people will start, like, I guess how many purchases are derived from.
Well, it's about meeting. It's about meeting. It's about meeting the goals of your sponsor or your partner or whoever you're working with in any business, and understanding what those goals are. Is their goal to reach X amount of Twitter followers? Is their goal to reach X amount of Facebook followers? Is their goal to invest X amount of dollars and get a little bit of ROI back? Conversion is that next step into ROI. So I think that's something that a lot of people miss out on when we get stuff for people who want us to sponsor them, or even I'm preparing decks for partners to go in on events or do those things on. One of the things I'm looking at is, yes, I can show you this is the kind of exposure you'll get out of the event, but I don't focus on that as much. I focus on how can we use that exposure to be beneficial to the partner in the end. So it's about understanding those goals and being able to convert your those users or convert that reach into something that's a little bit more of a tangible value to the end, to your partner.
Aaron, once you've reached the goal that the sponsor set for you, let's say, what is the goal that for you guys at least on your end? Is it the number of users that you get, and the number of new users that you get to your website? Is it the reach that you get through social media? What is it that you guys, that Beyond Gaming looks for when they set something with a partner?
I think everything comes down to a specific case. Everything deals with the specific case. It's one of the questions that one of the first questions I always ask. Because in the end, yes, we have the website and we do a lot of great tournaments and we do a lot of those things, but we're also a software developer. So, and we have a lot of great things to offer our partners and our clientele. So one of the things that is this first question is, what are your goals? What are you really trying to get out of said activation or said tournament? And once we reach those goals, you always want to try to go above and beyond. You say, okay, these are the goals. We want to hit that goal, but we want to do that much better. Maybe I want to do 10% better than what they wanted, than they expected. I always personally set my goals to surpass in whatever I'm doing, to surpass the expectations of whoever I'm working with, my partners or my clients or whoever.
Okay.
But when you're talking about just folks trying to get sponsors I totally understand that once you have the sponsorship relationship, trying to grow it, trying to progress, this partnership together. But when you're talking about somebody that's just basically contacting sponsors for the first time, trying to get their first sponsorship. It is all a lot about views, right? There's not very much metric to go by other than that.
No, it's a factor. It's a factor, but what I'm saying is that's what everybody's mentality is. Well, because that's what they see. That's what everybody keeps saying. This is the mentality. Get more views. This is how you get these dollars. This is how you get all these things. And let's take the guys over at One More Game TV, for instance, right? Yeah, they get a lot of views. But they don't always get a lot of views, when they do everything, or even the guys from EGs when they're doing activations or doing particular things, they don't always work out the way they do. But what they do, and when you're just starting out, the goal is maybe you don't have a huge viewer reach, or maybe you do have a huge viewer reach. That's great. That's not the goal. I'm saying approach the sponsor, approach the partner in saying, what are you trying to get? We see that you're doing things in esports. Well, we want you to be a part of esports. How can we help you? What can I do for you? What are those are the first questions you should be asking. Not, hey, look, I can put up 1 million views. That's great, but what does that 1 million views really mean to me? What is? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, because you hinted on something earlier that you kind of talked about, but just to explain to people watching, you mentioned conversion earlier.
Right.
That the conversion is basically the only thing that's important, almost exclusively. When you're talking about things like views, like you're talking about pulling 1 million views or 10 million views on something, basically what conversion is the expected percentage of your audience that will make a purchase of a product. So for instance, let's say you have a 1% conversion on your average audience. So say you show 1,000 advertisements, and of those 1,000 advertisements, you can expect 1% or 10 people to make a purchase. If your conversion is really, really, really bad, not to hurt the esports community or whatever, but like for instance, if you're advertising to like a young male demographic, maybe in college, who just buy StarCraft and they don't want to play anything, or they don't want to buy anything, like the conversion on that audience, even though you're pulling 10 million views, might be really, really, really bad. So just because you're selling 10 million ads doesn't necessarily mean that you can expect like great results or whatever. That conversion number is really, really, really important. I heard you mention earlier, but
well, and to add on what you're saying, let's put it to this way. Let's say you're approaching a sponsor and you're saying, well, I want $10,000. Because I can get you this many views. I can get you for $10,000. I'll get you 20 million views. I'll get your brand out to 20 million different people. And if you really do the math, if they were to go buy banner ads somewhere, the percentage of conversion on banner ads is somewhere between 1% and 3%, right? So they could get 20 million, 30 million, 50 million impressions with their banner ads for $10,000. But that conversion ratio of that is 1 to 3%. So maybe 1,000 total people they will convert, whether it's just landing on the page, and it's not always surrounded by getting a product. Maybe it's driving somebody to be a fan on Facebook. Maybe it's driving somebody to sign up for a free site, things like that. They'll get maybe 1,000 people out of 20 million impressions because they're falling in that 1 to 3%. If you can show a conversion number that's maybe better than that, yeah, you can get 20 million views, but because of what you do and the people that view you, your conversion ratio automatically will be higher because those people. So focusing your ideas and the things that you can do convert those users. Maybe you can do a 5% conversion rate, which then the user looks, then the sponsor says, oh, wait a minute, I can pay $10,000 for 20 million ad impressions to get a 1% conversion rate, or I can pay $10,000 to you, get the same amount of impressions and get a 5% conversion rate. Maybe the ROI doesn't exactly equal out to what they spent, but it's much higher than what they would if they went through different channels. And that's the importance and difference of conversion.
I'll be honest. I have not. I mean, with as many sponsors and partners that I've dealt with, that word has actually never been mentioned. I'll just be completely honest. It just hasn't.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not sure if it's just because it's just a different approach. I don't know. I'm so perplexed myself that word has never been mentioned when I've talked with TTE Sports or.
Wait, the which word?
Conversion.
Conversion's
Yeah.
like the most important part of Twitch.
I'm willing to bet that they already have, because I'm willing to bet that there's an average conversion tied to this demographic of advertising, and it's something that they already figured themselves.
Right.
Like, if you come up to someone, you're like, hey, I can sell, like, I'm going to give you all of my demographics. Like, I sell 30 million views a month, like, on my tournament games. Then they'll go, oh, you're from the esports community. We already have an estimated conversion for this community, so we're just going to, value that at X amount of dollars.
Right.
I'm almost 100% positive that it's something that they have figured out,
Right.
Rather than trusting you to tell them. Like, they would never go by what you would say. I'm sure they've already got their own marketing and research for that.
You know what I think the big problem is too, and I've dealt with this for a number of years through different companies. Is it's they don't always put a lot of stock into it. Well, let's talk about one thing that's happened a lot of times that we all know. A lot of companies are always very apt to give you product and to do product sponsorships, which really, in general, if I'm looking to a sponsor and I'm doing something big and doing some really, really big events, it's not always about product. For me, product is icing on the cake. I'll look at something and say, yeah, let's do some product, but that's kind of icing on the cake. Or sometimes you'll do an event where you're like, yeah, we'll do this event. We'll let you come in as a product sponsor because it's kind of that one time only. Look what we can do for you, but let's talk about taking the next step. Afterwards, they're very apt to do that, but that's also because that's been a precedent that's been set in this industry for so many years, for everybody, for less for larger tournament sponsors, but smaller tournaments, players, the teams are more apt to be like, yeah, we'll give you some product, here you go, and you're sponsored by us. Because that's the expectations that have been set, and that's kind of what they think they can get away with that. I think that shift is starting to shift and change.
That was never a good deal. That was stupid. That's a freebie. But their product cost is nowhere near what it's actually marketed for, and that's like free endorsement and advertising and everything. That's kind of a ripoff. No, I don't think anybody should have ever settled for those deals at any point in time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So Aaron, you must have done some magic to get hooked up with GE. What sort of conversion rates did you give them?
That was quite a deal. A lot of work up, but again, to be honest, a lot of that is based on that was one of the factors that came into it. It wasn't just a straight, some companies will just be like, all right, hey, we're just going to give you money. We don't really care, but our name is here, and we're going to do very, very little. Our goals with everything we do, with any partners, to be very, very engaged. We want partnerships to be very engaged. We want people to be engaged with us, not only our partners, but we want the consumers to be engaged with us. So when we structure a deal, when we do those type of things, that's what we're looking for. How does it engage beyond gaming?
Yeah,
how do I get
I was going to
more
ask,
users?
how important is the relationship that you create and that you build with the sponsors or with EG, how much does a relationship that you have with people at an organization, let's say EG, whether it's maybe PlayM has a good organization with a good relationship with certain sponsors, how much do you think that plays into a sponsor's decision to choose one organization over the other?
I mean, it plays a very, very big part, to be honest with you. You could, I mean, honestly, you could put, in this industry, I think there's another common misconception we could talk about, that this is this huge multi-billion-dollar industry. So the correct part of that statement is, yes, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, the gaming business is, but it's not as big as people think. When you start, go ahead.
There's a really big distinction you have to make, and it's so important, and it explains a lot of how the industry's ran, especially like the discrepancy between how Blizzard treats the esports scene as opposed to the gaming scene. When you talk about games, you have to separate what people consider esports, what people consider the video game industry, because those are two very, very, very separate things. For instance, the esports scene has much less money in it. We're talking several order of magnitudes less than the gaming industry. That's a really important distinction, right? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's a very good point. But I think if you think that's a very good point, you're right. So, but again, the size is still small. When you really think about the inner workings of, let's talk about the esports industry, or even the inner workings of the gaming industry, because they tend to bleed over into each other a little bit. But when you think about just the size in comparison, it is really small. You're really literally 6 degrees of separation between any person working in the industry or involved with the industry. And sometimes it's only 1 or 2 hops at the most. So it's not quite that big. So relationships are really, really, really important. Developing relationship. You could have 2 people who have the exact same product to offer, going after the exact same sponsor, and it could be a mere match. But depending on the relationship that you have, that one person has with the sponsor and compared to the other person, the person with the better relationship is more apt to get the deal. And that's just the reality of it. I mean, there's a lot of networking and relationships that have to be made in this industry, and that you have to continue to grow and cultivate and do as you get more involved in it, to get more opportunities, to be the one that, the first phone call that's made by the sponsor because they want something is straight to you, because you have that relationship in place.
Right, okay. Well, why don't we conclude the kind of misconception portion of the show and kind of lead into some of these topics we have. I think that was, a lot of great stuff on sponsors and sponsorships, and you're right. It is totally about just relationships, and that kind of human to human relationship is always going to have an advantage over just somebody just looking at proposals and things like that, right? Okay, why don't we get into this? So why don't we start with more just more questions kind of targeted towards kind of your segment, Aaron, and we'll start about when it comes to events and when it comes to a lot of the online and LAN events, I guess you guys have been running. What are the marketing channels that you guys use, and which ones do you think are the most successful when it comes to promoting events?
I think it comes down to, it really comes down to looking at each individual community for each individual game, where they interact the most. Obviously we all know 2 of the top places to go and get things out to for StarCraft are obviously Team Liquid, and Reddit is really big. So when we look at the marketing channel we're going to choose, streaming is always something we get involved in. If we're doing a LAN tournament, if we're doing an online tournament, if we can stream the game, we're going to stream it. But we always try to go to the community hubs as well. Any forums they're very big for it. We've done a lot of really big Gears of War tournaments over the last couple months, and we've been very involved with a lot of the major Gears forums. We've been involved with the developer directly. We try to get involved with whoever we can that has large presences on Twitter, Facebook, and large communities, and that's really the channels we try to hit. That's the best way that I could explain that.
Okay, John, like with your kind of experience with it with CSN, would you agree with Aaron? those channels are probably the best when it comes to marketing events.
Yeah, I mean, really anything within the community itself, as deep as you can get into the community within each game. I mean, we'll have, we have staff members that have been a part of each of those communities, whatever game it may be, and really the key is creating relationships within the community and going as deep as you can, at least as far as we see it, and then obviously using all of the social media aspects that you have. I mean, I have guys that literally they only use IRC, but they're going to need to branch out and find other ways at which to reach an audience of people that enjoy their game.
Now, when you guys mentioned Twitter, right? I mean, I think a lot of people would agree that one of the channels that they use also is Twitter. You did mention like you would work with some, I guess, people with a large Twitter following, to help market your event. I mean, does that kind of thing happen? Like, would you guys ever consider working with to help your event purely, just like not even necessarily participate, purely a marketing type of relationship? Because of, say, his Twitter followers is, definitely has value, right? And from a marketing standpoint, I mean, do you guys do anything like that?
Not really. I mean, it's one thing to have value because you have a large amount of followers, but if the important thing is that the message has the message that you're sending out has value to the followers of that person. So if I'm sending out something through a specific channel, my goal is that what I'm sending out has value to the people that subscribe to said channel or a part of said channel. If it doesn't, then it doesn't mean anything to them, and it's just a waste of my time and everybody else's time.
Right. Okay.
It seems like Twitter is really spammy. I don't like it I don't know.
I think it's getting worse. I
don't feel like Twitter is like a great way to market anything right now. It's like literally like the spammiest, most useless kind of thing I've ever seen, I think.
And I think almost everything has gotten that way at some point. Just after the more people that use it, it just becomes a big cesspool of...
Maybe. Well, I mean, like with Team Liquid and Reddit and stuff like that, like you kind of filter out what most people are interested in. Like on Reddit, it's the upvotes. On Team Liquid, it's because it's constantly refreshed due to people posting. But like, I don't know, like on Twitter, like I'm only following 5 people on Twitter, and my thing is spammed like crazy. So I can't imagine the people that are following like 50 or 60 or 70 or hundreds of people. I don't know, it just seems like a kind of an ineffective way to market things, from my perspective.
Yeah, there's a lot of information that just comes across that you just have to skim over. It's just worthless. I just feel bad unfollowing them.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I try to keep mine clean. Like I try to not do a large amount of followers. I try to, you kind of weed it out. Like sometimes I'll follow people for a few days, or a few weeks, just to kind of see what kind of information is going out. And if I don't see anything that's worthwhile, I get rid of them. I tend to only follow people that I think send out valuable stuff, and then even they spam. I mean, you can't help that. There's going to be people that spam consistently, but I think there are little nuggets of things that sink out from there. It's really just about not following. A lot of people follow everybody. They're like, I just have to follow everybody I possibly can every 2 seconds, and it's like, no. I think you just learn that after time.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Let's see. The next thing I had here is kind of, maybe, again, geared towards Aaron and even you, John. When it comes to running a live event, in last episode we had the Rosen brothers on, right? And we discussed, how cool, like, the Lone Star Clash was, and just, how a bunch of students could run, such a, event that actually ended up reaching so many viewers, right? I guess my question here is, what do you guys think is, I guess, the minimal staff that it would take to run a live event? And when I meant minimal staff, I mean just kind of talk about, like, I guess the number of people in each role, that you need, and just maybe just the number of roles, or what a lot of the people are doing at these events that a lot of people don't see because it's behind the scenes.
I mean, that's kind of a broad question. It can go. It all depends on like how big of the event you're doing. So when I did the the WCG US National Finals in 2010, let me see. We probably had about 10 people managing 400 players, and then running the entire 3 days of that event. And that was packing up, and maybe we had a few more, not counting the broadcast crew. So let's say 15 total people. But we had 5 people that were dedicated specifically to the broadcast, and we had 10 people that channeled everything else, all the other setup, the refs, and everything like that. And then we did the U.S. Global Finals in LA that year, and there was 120 people running that entire event. You know, where you had 800 players and all these different elements going on. And then all the way down to there was maybe when we did. This is the last Gears of War tournament we had maybe actual people physically working there, 8 or 10 people for 32 teams over 3 days, and that included the broadcast people.
Yeah,
so
I guess.
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this question was, more. I mean, I can understand that it's a little bit for people trying to start their own events. What they feel would be the minimal staff and. Which example you gave was, I think, a pretty good example. Just the qualifier. And all those people, were those all Beyond Gaming staffs, or were any of those people volunteers?
There's volunteers actually at the Gears of War. I was the only actual Beyond Gaming. Oh no, me and Barbosa. There was 2 of us that were there that were actually Beyond Gaming people. The rest of them were pretty much volunteers that were helping run the whole thing. There were some people that actually helped that didn't actually have anything to do with the whole Hypefestation event up into the point where they actually got there to actually come view or play in the event, and then they actually turned into refs that worked the entire weekend. So, yeah, that's pretty. Volunteers are very important at events like that, because not everybody has the massive budgets of a WCG or an MLG. And I believe MLG even relies on volunteers. Their refs are all volunteers.
About 40 of them.
Right.
They have about 40 volunteers.
So for even large
40 volunteers?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. So for even companies like MLG, volunteers are important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are these volunteers, kind of organized, like organizations that are obviously not getting paid, or are they just individuals? Because do you guys worry about volunteers not showing, and you basically
worry about it? It's
them?
expected that they won't show.
Yeah.
It's expected that some of them won't show, or they will show and they'll try to leech off everything and get as much swag as they can and then walk out. And that's no joke.
No, it happens. I always try to take care of the volunteers. I think you never try to set expectations for them too much. I've learned that you never try to set an expectation. You want to get those people that want to be there because they want to be there, not because they might be getting something out of it. And they're always much more appreciative when they get something in the end. Like a lot of the Hypefestation guys walked away with A40s and Astro bags, and kind of whatever we had left over from the sponsors' pools, we were just kind of like handing out to the volunteers to show our appreciation. At the WCG Grand Finals, everybody that worked there got not only a little gift bag, but they all got brand new pairs of Astros and a bunch of other stuff just for working that whole weekend.
I see. Okay, that's cool. When you're talking about, you just talked about Gears of War, and obviously you're doing SE2 and a lot of other games, and same with you, John, with CSN. When we're talking about, I guess, trying, when you're talking about budget and infrastructure, because obviously you guys do online games and you also do live events. How, right now, are you guys just trying to cover all the games, or because of budget and infrastructure, you really are limited to just a handful of games? I mean, what right now for Beyond Gaming? I mean, what is y'all's coverage like, or what is y'all's plan for coverage?
We're actually making a shift. So in about a month, we're going to be launching a new version of our site and a new version of our software. A lot of what our software does, like on the SC2 side, we have completely automated tournament brackets. So there's no replay uploading or anything like that. You basically join in, you play, it runs everything along. We have the same kind of functionality for Han, for Halo, for a number of other games. We developed this competition software to do that. One of the things that we're looking at is, while we can do what everybody else does, and a lot of other groups do, and do the honor system, and pretty much add as many games as we want, we kind of started down that road. We're kind of dialing back and saying, hey, we really want to focus on communities. We want to focus on games that really show off the product that we're developing, which are the StarCrafts and the Heroes of New Earths and those games. We want to really focus on those communities and really work with them and kind of build around those. And then as we grow and as new games come out and we develop more and more relationships with developers, then we can start to add new games in and delve into more communities and grow past that. Those are kind of our goals when we look at it.
Okay. John, what do you think at CSN? You guys have similar kind of philosophy?
We try not to jump into too many games unless we have, staff on board or somebody's come to us and said, hey, we're really interested in creating a tournament for this event. For this game. And it may be a game that we've never dealt with before, but we'll certainly do it. Our staff, the staff that I have, I hope can handle about any game because, as Aaron was pointing out, it's really about having really good competition software. You'll find that no matter how long a company's been around, and I'll just say it since I worked for them and I know it, but the ESL website is pure garbage. And they have 10 years of experience doing this, and they've been doing it for a long time, so they're going to have a huge user base, but they'll continue to lose users until their competition software is much better. So I know.
Are these the same people that this is like the Go for SC2 and
yes.
Go for LOL?
Yeah,
oh god, that site.
Those guys.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. That site is hilariously horrible.
Yeah.
I feel like every time I visit that website, I feel like I'm back in like 2001 or something.
That's because that's pretty much exactly when it was built, and they haven't changed much. They keep adding junk code to it, and it's not that they're not trying. Their new Versus software is really, really good. For matching people up. It's not good for StarCraft 2. It just doesn't work. But yeah, I think having really solid competition software and then focusing on communities that you have a deep reach in, or that you have staff that's very passionate about doing it. We have some guys that came to us and said we want to do combat arms because, believe it or not, there are communities out there for other games other than StarCraft 2 where there are huge numbers, and you know what? It's not even about the numbers. You could have all the numbers you want in StarCraft 2, but if no one shows up to play, it doesn't matter. If they don't show up to play in competitions. But there's a community of 40 teams in combat arms or something like that, and they love players and say we need competition software to run events. Of course, we'll definitely look into it and take it seriously, and in some cases we'll do exactly that. We'll run events for them. Because it is good for us. We were talking earlier, is it the number of views that we get when we stream an event? We're not going to get 300 people to watch a Combat Arms event. Or is it the number of users? And for me, at least, the way I see what we're doing at CSN is I want to bring users to our website, and then we, at some point we got to find a way to turn those users into an ROI for CSN. And we're getting there. We're just a year old. So.
Yeah, in the end, just to jump on that, everybody's goals obviously is to get more users, and then kind of work with them from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you get a lot of users, that you can do many things, right? A lot of goals, right. Websites, and just almost any product is to get a lot of users. That's why there's a lot of free product, right? Free product, they're just trying to acquire as many users as possible. And you can monetize it once you get them.
Aaron was talking about they were doing, sorry to shift back, but the Gears of War stuff. So one of the things is when CSN is looking to do an event, we do seriously look at what else is happening. If we know that ESEA has a pretty good stranglehold on Counter-Strike, right? So we're gonna take, we're gonna look into it seriously. Is Counter-Strike something that we're gonna get into when CS:GO comes out? Because it will undoubtedly be ESL and ESEA that will have kind of a stranglehold on a lot of the users, but if we decide it's something we're going to jump into, we have to leverage, is our software going to be better than what ESL and ESEA has to offer? Do we have enough people on staff to create relationships with the community? Do we have, a couple what we call anchors, which, might be pros or whatnot that can bring users to our website so that we can do that? So there really is a lot to decide when you're choosing a game. But not only that, when we run an event, like Aaron and I, we're both at. Honestly, we're at competing companies in a sense, but we're going to try to work together. I mean, he's to not step on each other's toes when running events for the same game. And they're running the Gears of War. They might have they might be the Gears of War people. So we may not run Gears of War because of that. I mean, is it worth it for us to just jump in and do everything that we can to try to take something away from that somebody's already established a community with? So.
Right. So, like all of you guys, like what do you think will be the most prevalent game, or what will be the prevalent games in esports by the end of this year? Like, what do you think will be on all the tickets?
MOBAs.
Besides StarCraft 2 and looks like LOL, right?
MOBAs. It's going to be all about.
Are there any surprise games?
Dota 2. Surprise, probably maybe Dota Tribes, because NASL picked it up, and I don't know how long it will last, and I think I was asked that question once before, but I would say that Tribes, I mean, you almost have to have some sort of FPS on the circuit, in my opinion, to make it legit, but that's just because I'm a huge FPS fan, but...
Right.
I think it's a waiting game. I mean, I'm noticing a big shift. I've been getting a lot of calls lately and talking to some developers and some other groups, and, it's kind of... Esports is becoming a forefront on a lot of people's minds. I mean, you look at groups like Firefall. Firefall's coming out and has an esports initiative. Guild Wars 2 has come out and said they want to have an esports initiative. There's, it seems to be on the forefront of a lot of different developers' minds.
Ghost
Recon wants to come out. I mean, it's a good and a bad. I think it's a double-edged sword. It's a good and a bad. You've got MLG doing the Max Payne Pro exhibition, and I'm not 100% sure how I feel about that. But again, here you have a developer that's saying, "Oh, well, competition is something that we need to be into or thinking about as we're developing our titles. Esports or a competitive side to our different games." And I'm seeing that more and more coming out of developers. When I was at GDC, I was talking to a lot of the different developing studios and even small indie guys. They want to come out with the next big FPS or the next big mobile or one of these. I mean, I think we're going to have defined games, and I think it's going to be hard to say. I think as more and more developers start throwing their hats into the rings over the next year, I think we're going to see you're going to see a big spread. You're going to see, obviously we'll have the League of Legends, and you'll have the StarCrafts that will still be on top because why? Because they're established. But I think you'll see a lot of different crossover, and I think there'll be a lot of different games vying for that top spot, and money really starting to come out at it.
Yeah, and money talks, to be honest with you. I mean, if someone has a lot of money and they go to MLG and say, we want our game on your circuit, from my understanding, MLG will say, okay, we want 200K, and if somebody pumps a lot of money into a game, and League of Legends is a good example of that, they can almost create an esport out of their game, no matter how shitty it is. Not that League of Legends is shitty, but...
I think it all comes down to, actually, I'm pretty sure it all comes down to the player base. Mm-hmm. You have to have a lot of players. Whether you can design the perfect game from the ground up for esports or whatever you want to call it, but you have to have the player base there. A great game with no player base will never be an esport. A shitty game with a massive player base can become an esport.
Yeah, that's very
I think the best example of that would be MLG, not to bash anybody's game or whatever, but MLG has always featured like console games, console FPSs or whatever at MLG, and they've just finally started to tone back on it. But I mean, the only reason why there's a professional scene for Call of Duty is because there are so many people that play it on console. They sell millions. How many copies? They move so many copies every time a new Modern Warfare comes out. They have so much money. Just from having a massive player base alone, just by having that massive player base, you have so many more eyes on the game, so many more people, trying to sponsor, trying to throw money at it or whatever, to try to get, some eyes on their product or whatever, and then you kind of get a pro scene that way. It's more important to have more people in the game than to try to create the perfect esports game, I think, in my personal opinion.
No,
that's
true, Steven, but it's funny that you brought up the Call of Duty, because what you're saying is that they have a huge user base, but there's the reason MLG can't use Call of Duty this year, or at least on the circuit, is because the developer isn't willing to put enough into it to make it viable for esports. So you have to give a little bit. You have to have a little bit of both. You definitely have to have the numbers.
Well, let me make a point to that though, real quick, just so you can look past this. The reason the developer is doing that is because the developer is seeing how much they can engage their user finally. Look at what was it, Call of Duty Elite. This whole subscription service. They're doing tournaments and competitions within themselves. Why should they pay anybody else when they have all the data? They have the consumer base that they can market directly to. Why not just internalize that? And that's what you're seeing with Call of Duty Elite. And you're going to continue to, I think you're going to start to continue to see that out of other developers as they realize we can contain this within ourselves. We can do this within ourselves, and we can monetize our own users, whether through DLC or memberships to an elite program like that, where they host and do all of these certain things, where they no longer really need companies like MLG or other companies out there marketing their game. But again, you also look at regions too. Console games are primarily a North American market and very little in Europe. You can't do that with a PC game. PC games are global. You need a lot of, you need other groups. You need the GSLs and the MLGs and the ESLs of the world out there spreading it out and getting it out to people to kind of gain that reach and get that competitive, engine up and turning.
That the point that you made earlier about like making money, I think that's so important. That's why I made that distinction earlier when you mentioned esports and video game companies. Like, there's a lot of money in video games. There's not very much money in esports.
No.
Like, the incentive for the Call of Duty people, every 6 months, every year, they can turn out another game. They can release DLC. All they want to do is monetize.
Well,
supporting esports, there's not much money for them to.
They don't have incentive to do it.
No.
It doesn't
So
make
That's
it's a
why,
cash
like,
cow.
it's one of the reasons why, like, when you look at Blizzard, like, Blizzard Activision, like, where does Blizzard Activision make their money from? Activision has their FPS franchise, that's where they get all their money from. Where does Blizzard make all their money from? Every time a game is released, that's where their money comes from. When StarCraft 2 launches and they make sales, that's where all the money comes. They don't get money from patching. They don't get money from esports. They don't get money if 7 billion people watch the GSL.
Okay.
That understanding that there's not much money in esports right now because there's not much to be made, I think is really important to understand.
Well, let's understand the developers aren't making as much money as they'd like to either. They're not making as much ARPU as they should be in comparison to LoLs, to like the League of Legends or a lot of the free-to-plays. So there's a really, really huge shift actually going on in the game industry right now about how do we monetize our users. Your average, let's say on a console game, a Call of Duty, your average return on revenue per user is maybe $100. So every time you release a title, you will maybe get $100 out of that user, and that's including initial game purchase and DLC. When you look at the ARPU of a League of Legends or Heroes of New Earth, it's massive. They're probably getting their ARPU is probably $200 to $300 to $400 per user over time, and that's why you've always seen developers pumping games out, because there's a lot of cost to pumping a box game, so to speak, because you've got a lot of distribution costs and obviously all the costs in building it, and they're constantly pumping new titles out. Why do you see a Call of Duty every 6 months? Because they can only make $100 off their user base every time they release a new game, and they're spending tens of millions of dollars on advertising and building all that stuff up. Whereas you have a League of Legends who maybe spent, I bet you it cost them $150,000 to develop the first version of their client. And they're they make hundreds of millions of dollars at this point. I don't know what their exact income is, but they continue to make income over time off of a user. I bet you the average is $20 a month per user.
I mean, it's just, that's like what you're saying. I mean, it's a different business model, right? And obviously the LOL and kind of microtransaction, that type of business model is more conducive for an esports, because, we need a consistent product, right, to make a sport out of it, right? Otherwise, you have you have StarCraft or other games, and that are coming out like basically every 2 years, and you have fragmentation amongst the players, right? So yeah, I mean, having a consistent, definitely having a single title is definitely better for esports, but I think to your point, Stephen, like, obviously a lot of these companies are making most of their revenue through sales. There's a huge potential in licensing and sponsorships of what esports brings to the table, right? I mean, obviously esports isn't as large, it's still in the infantile stage, right? And right now, I agree with you. There's not much money right now, but potentially, if these guys are the first people to really get land these deals and get these crazy licensing deals, they can make just as much money. right?
Maybe they have to do a better job at it. Blizzard is they're just so bad. Like Blizzard is just so absolutely atrocious in doing it that I don't know. I mean, ideally, yeah. I mean, there are ways to do it, but what I gave earlier, that was just my point of view, my justifying their laziness. In all actuality, I mean, there are better ways to monetize it. Like, there are so many ways that Blizzard could be making a little bit more money on StarCraft 2. Like, how long have people cried for just free name change, $5 free name change? You know, like little things like that. There's a lot of little ways that they can make money of it. But I'm just like looking at it from their perspective. Like, you've got the WoW monthly sub fees. You've got every time you release a game, you know, that ARPU that was mentioned earlier, like all of that is gotten up front, you know? That ARPU is a one-time thing, you know? We sell the game and then bam, there is no more DLC, there is no microtransaction, you know, basically screw all after that one-time transaction. League of Legends and ideally I think Dota 2 when it comes out are really cool because they found a way to kind of sustain that to keep sales happening, you know, as players continue to play the game.
Yeah, and it's the cost.
Yeah, the esports scene needs to figure out, like, they have to, like, synergize better with the people that make the games, because right now there's absolutely no incentive. I mean, as it stands right now, there's no incentive for Blizzard to support esports. They're going to make pretty much the same amount of money whether or not they support it. Right now, I mean, as we've seen with MLG, like, MLG has just been a huge kind of angel investment with no ROI. I mean, I don't know, figure out a way to monetize and make money off of things better. And people need to realize that, too, that's kind of what it comes down to in the end.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's all business and it all costs money. You know, you know, if you have the money to support, I mean, Riot's huge. I mean, if you really look at the growth of Riot over the last 2 or 3 years, compared to where they were 2 years ago, and the number of employees and the space that they've moved into and what they do now, it's absolutely amazing. And it's not just because some angel came in and was like, okay, or Tencent came in and were like, well, you're this small, so we're going to give you this much money to go this big. It was because they were getting this big, and Tencent came in and said, wow, you need to be bigger and doing more because what you're doing is right. And they grow, and they have the money to continuously develop the game. You know, you get limited to that with box games, and StarCraft is a box game, so there may be limited development time. I mean, how many employees did Blizzard just lay off recently?
Yeah.
There was a huge layoffs at Blizzard. So, you know, when you do have that is an issue you run into when you have those box games, is your money's going to run out eventually as the sales continue to go down. But I think Blizzard has always been a really good company in, if you go to the store, you go to Target, you go to Walmart, or anything, you know, or you go to GameStop, wherever you like to shop, you will still see the original, you know, the StarCraft battle chest or the Diablo battle chest for $19.99 sitting on the shelf.
Right.
10, 12 years after they've been released, and people are still buying them. So if they're still producing it, there's obviously still some box sales being made, but I don't think not nearly as much as to, you know, support the kind of development that we'd like to see.
Right. Okay. Well, I wanted to definitely allocate enough time for for the player segment here. So why don't we kind of switch gears here and kind of steer the topics a little bit more towards the player segment with Steven. So obviously there's been a lot of stuff going on with in regards to you, Steven, recently, and you leaving Quantic and that sort of thing. Kind of want to start off with what are your views on the community's influence on team sponsors? Meaning, like, what do you think about members of the community, just the regular members of the community thinking, when they're not liking doing or the behavior or whatever it is, they go basically go complaining directly to sponsors instead of, say, like their team or employers. I mean, what do you guys think of that type of behavior in the community?
Is that directed at me?
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously a pretty influential way to get things done. I mean, it's a really complicated. Hello?
Anybody want to?
You're a little delayed, Chris. Go ahead, Steven.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh. I mean, it's a really effective way to get things done, but there's a lot of pros and cons to it. I mean,
can you hear?
Yeah, Chris, he's delayed.
I think so.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, go ahead, Steven. He'll hear that he'll hear what we said in a second, and then he'll stop
Eventually.
talking, I hope. Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons to it. I mean, obviously, you can get things done pretty quickly. If you go straight to sponsors, you also run the risk of sponsors pulling out completely. I mean, I don't know. Just it's a pretty broad question.
Well, to me, it doesn't make sense that that's how the community would handle. I mean, I guess it does. You know, when things happen, like for instance, when a radio talk show host makes a poor decision, does something stupid, you know, people start walking away from those that continue to sponsor him because they're like, we're not going to support you if you continue to support this person. And I understand, like you said, it does get things done, but to me it just seems like a really, especially in esports right now, it just seems really ridiculous for people to go straight to a sponsor because when
it depends. It's really, really, really important, and this is the cornerstone of this argument here.
Sure.
Very, very, very important is you have to draw the distinction between whether or not the aforementioned, whether or not a behavior is acceptable and how you combat said unacceptable behavior. And I feel like it's really easy to blend those two. For example, like with Orb or with me or whatever, like a lot of people might be saying like, oh, like you shouldn't go to sponsors, blah, 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 blah. When in reality, what they're actually saying is, oh, like the behavior didn't justify going to sponsors. The behavior wasn't that bad that they needed, like mention something to the team, blah, 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 blah. Going to sponsors is an effective way to get things done. For instance, if a news report released tomorrow that Sheth was a serial rapist or whatever,
right,
and Liquid wasn't kicking him off, like that's something where like go to the sponsors and like fucking pull the money from Team
right.
Liquid. Like this can't be acceptable.
You know, but that's if Team Liquid wasn't going to pull him off. I mean, nobody even gave Quantic an opportunity or you an opportunity to resolve the issue and make some sort of statement. They instantly started going to sponsors like, get rid of him. I mean, it just, to me, that in that case it just became a huge problem. I mean, this could have all been dealt with a lot differently, and it doesn't mean that it ever will, because the community will do what they want, and there's a huge number of trolls and asshats in it, but it just doesn't make sense.
Well, and I mean, there's a lot of different, like, it's like I said, it's kind of complicated, because then at that point, like, it could be, like, more Razor's responsibility to then to kind of determine, like, what should, like, all of these people are coming to us, is it that big of a deal? Like, is it something we need to pay a lot of attention to? Is it, I mean, yeah, I guess people should go to the team first, but if you really think the behavior is incredibly deplorable, I mean, maybe you should go straight to the sponsors. I don't know.
Yeah, but
go ahead, Aaron. Let me answer that too, because we were, you know, we could speak from a situation that happened with EG with Orb. I'll be honest. I mean, I saw it, and because we keep an eye on things, you know, that's our goal. We keep an eye on what's going on and things, and you know, we saw it, but I didn't react to anything right away. And I know that may seem wrong, but what I did is I actually waited until, you know, Alex and Scott came to me and said, "Here's the deal. This is what's going on." You know, because people tend to overreact, and you know, I look at it as, okay, how much did it really affect us? You know, I think it affects the team than anything, or that group more than anything, because you're going to have more than one particular sponsor. And yes, the sponsor may say something to them and say, look, this isn't acceptable. But it really, people need to think about, what is the overall effect of what I'm doing? Oh, I don't like this guy, or I don't like what he did, so I'm going to possibly harm a relationship for the entire team. You know, personally, I think going to the team first and seeing how they react before going to the sponsors is a much better plan than going directly to the sponsors. Because it could actually affect, in my mind, it could affect, you know, it could say, okay, well, guess what? We're pulling the sponsorship from the entire team because of one player's mistake or one player's actions. And without even talking with you about it, we're just going to pull it because we just didn't like that. You should have controlled every single part about him. And I think there's that misconception too, is that sponsors have all the control of the teams, and that's not really true. I mean, it's a partnership. You know, a sponsorship is a partnership, and you know, you rely on the leadership of the teams or the groups to make the right decisions.
Yeah, I think a little of that's getting clouded, you know, lately. Especially, I feel like it's kind of, you know, started with the whole Orb thing, and you know, I think people are forgetting that the teams in this scenario are the employers, right? Mm-hmm. And the sponsors are investors. You know, if we're trying to look at it like in a different industry, like you don't see people going and complaining to VCs when, when somebody like, I don't know, Coca-Cola is doing something, you know, weird, you know, or not Coca-Cola. Let's say somebody that's being represented by Coke. Well, here's Gatorade's a good example. You don't see I don't think you see people complaining to VCs, or investors for like Gatorade when Tiger Woods is like doing all that stuff. He was doing like 2 years ago or whatever. It's just not normal, right? I mean, you usually go straight to the employer, and the employer, handles it the way they do. But and if they don't do anything, like you said, or like John, you said, then you can maybe take it a step further. And I think the community is just jumping straight to the sponsors, like.
Yeah, I think if that continues or it becomes a problem, and like Steven said, each situation is slightly different. And there may be times in which you need to go straight to the sponsor because the team's reaction immediately is just one that people don't like. But in this case, it just seemed like they skipped right past Quantic and went right to the sponsors. And I think if we go down that road, we're going to end up busting this bubble much quicker than maybe we should, because a lot of sponsors are going to be like, all right, I'm done with esports again. I'm not going to deal with it anymore. And then we got to wait 2 years for another great game and great things to happen, and they get back into it. I mean, there's a reason AMD doesn't sponsor esports right now. Yes, they're doing a little bit more of it, and that's great, but there's definitely a lot of reasons why they're not doing it anymore, and doing this sort of thing coming from the community could really actually hurt us if we're not careful. It's not that it doesn't need to happen sometimes. It's just, I think if we're not careful, it could hurt us.
I thought it was because if you played games, you'd never buy any. I'm just kidding.
Nice.
I think it's a really intoxicating feeling as a community to know that you can have that kind of influence on people too, and that's a little bit scary. After seeing what happened to Orb or what happened, in my situation, or like people all of a sudden, and I get worried too. And I guess I try not to talk about my own situation because obviously there's perceived bias there. But like, say like if Rage quits another show match, like where do you start to draw the line at like where do we like start to go crazy and like mailing sponsors and stuff like, hey, like Idra just rage quit another match, like we all need to send emails to Intel to have them, like pressure him off the team,
But Steven, the other problem here is that the StarCraft community, compared to a lot of other communities, considers themselves to be very, I don't even know the right word, but like when Idra trash talks, or in StarCraft 2 they call it BM, when he BMs, I laugh. To me, it doesn't bother me at all. In fact, my opinion is always we need a little bit more of it, especially in the StarCraft 2 community. It just baffles me that people get so worked up about,
Well, and people don't actually get worked up to it. It's a really complicated issue. Like 2 days after the whole everything went down with me or whatever, like literally on the front page of Reddit was a post that was upvoted about Idra, and in the first sentence it said Idra is a retarded faggot for leaving games or whatever. But like everybody up, like so it's like where are all the people that got mad before it, bad language along. So I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it's just sometimes it's just people just
It's a mob mentality. That's what you have to chalk it up to. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Is it's a mob mentality. One person is just going to fly off the handle, and a bunch of people are going to be like, "Hey, as a jerk off, blah 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 blah." I mean, it's just how it goes. You take it for what it is.
But people, I just, the reason I'm bringing this up in the show is that I want people to realize that. These kind of things, kind of what John was alluding to earlier, is that when sponsors start, seeing or just start receiving these kind of things, and it becomes kind of an annoyance for them, then that just hurts esports. And every mistake we make in esports right now is 2 steps back. And it's going to be like another year, another 2 years before like that same sponsor might want to re-enter esports. And I just want to make sure that the community realizes that it's more detrimental than you think, than just trying to screw this single person. You're actually hurting the community in esports like overall by doing things like that. And everybody has the right to do whatever they want. I'm not saying you don't have the right to do it. Just just kind of at least just have that in the back of your head whenever if you are doing that kind of things.
Yeah.
Well, we just need to get beyond the elitism that we all suffer from as gamers, is what it comes down to. Like, we need to realize that this community, the industry, everything is growing and it's expanding, and it's going to happen. This is where we've talked about for years. These are the areas, the milestones that we've been achieving. This is where everybody wants to get to. So anything that's detrimental or dragging it down or counterintuitive to that, like you said, it doesn't really help. that stuff's gonna happen. The industry's gonna get big. Things are going to go mainstream, whether you like it or not. Some things we may not like the way they turn out to be. But if we want this to be a viable industry for everybody involved, if we want to be able to turn on Fox one day and see esports being played live on Fox and have the pro players we love to watch making millions of dollars and having a really thriving industry out of it, these are the things that's where it's going to have to go. These are the growing pains that we're going to have to go through.
Right. Yep. Steven, so I have a question for you. So, recently you parted ways with Quantic Gaming, and I kind of wanted to get a sense of, you mentioned something about, in your statement, where everyone read it, you mentioned that it really didn't really affect your living. I mean, it didn't have a huge effect on how, whether you'd be making enough money for, to live on and that kind of thing. So I kind of wanted to get a sense of what were the pros and cons for you being on a team, and Quantic obviously means specifically here.
Networking is really important, and being on a team helps with that, although I've kind of established that now. And then there are some financial benefits, obviously. So those are the pros, and then cons, I guess, not being able to join another team. I don't know. Cons of being on any team.
Yeah, but Steven, don't you think you'd be better off just on your own anyway at this point, now that you've gained the exposure of having a team in their network and being able to reach out to your own sponsors, to your own opportunities? Don't you feel like maybe this could be a good opportunity for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. I kind of like to manage things on my own anyway, and I'd like to not have to talk to other people if I don't have to about business stuff. So, I definitely look forward to being kind of on my own again. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So you don't see yourself looking for a team anytime soon?
Not really, no. I make enough money streaming. There's just not much of an incentive for me to join one at the moment, I don't think. Right.
Okay. So, one thing that's very unique about you, and everybody references it when they're talking about you, is that you're one of the few players, if you can say you're probably one of the only players, if not the only player, that doesn't rely on winning tournaments, from a success standpoint. I mean, you can kind of, I guess, label that as like a personality in the community. What are your thoughts on that? What is the level of success you think you can reach as a player without winning, major tournaments?
As long as I make money streaming, I get that money. Is that considered success? Or you mean tournament finishes? Or how long do you think is streaming sustainable without posting any good results? Is that kind of?
Yeah, success that's a good point. We should define success. What is success as a player? We could define it as just making a healthy living. Let's just define it as that first.
In terms of making a healthy living, I would choose streaming over tourney results any day of the week. It's just way too hard to post tourney results, and the money that you make is too inconsistent. As somebody with a kid in a house and bills, I can't hope that I'm the best at a tournament and make enough money to pay my bills. Streaming is usually a much more reliable way of generating money, as long as you get enough viewers.
Right. Do you think streaming right now is it more competitive for eyes right now, or has it been pretty consistent for you in your base?
I've been pretty consistent up until just this month because of everything that happened with Team Liquid. But I'm lucky in that I got in really early and I kind of have my established fan base. So even aside from the controversy and everything, I'll probably always be able to make a decent living streaming. So. But for new people, if you're talking about there are a lot of eyes on it, for new people, it's a lot harder to get into streaming now. Obviously the competition is huge. If you go to Team Liquid now, there's over 100 people streaming just on that site. That's not all the people streaming on Owned or all the people streaming on Twitch. So yeah, there's a lot more competition now to do it.
Do you think that will help or hurt what you're doing?
I think it hurts right now. It hurts everybody. Not that that's a bad thing, but obviously it's like a supply and demand thing where the number of viewers, there's always been this many people watching streams. It's not like that number is growing. So the more people that come in, the more people that are competing for the same amount of eyes. It makes it a little tougher for everyone. Right. But it's not necessarily.
Some people are just gonna have to work harder to get to keep those eyes. Then obviously.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. So given that streaming, you have such a strong base, and you have very devout fans. I think it's kind of known that your fans are obviously very very devoted to you. How important is it for you to go to MLGs and IPLs? And you are I feel like you don't get enough credit for being a player. I think you're very high big player. A lot of time to that. How important is it to your again success, being at these events and competing, and that sort of thing?
It depends on that success word comes up again. It depends. I mean, obviously finishing in a tournament, like from a player standpoint, would be really good. But really all the MLGs or whatever up to this point have just kind of been little vacations for me. It costs me money to travel, even if the hotel and everything's paid for, obviously, because I lose money by not streaming. So I mean, right now I just kind of go to tournaments and
Right.
and I play and I
I have no clue what he just said.
Is it important to be able to get some FaceTime with fans, or
I mean, this sounds.
breaking up a little?
Yeah.
You talk.
Chris is breaking up, but Steven, I think I mean, obviously he's wanting to know, I mean, how is it important in the scheme of things? I mean, obviously you could sit at home and you could stream League of Legends or StarCraft 2 or whatever during an MLG event, but is it important for you? Obviously it is a fun vacation. It's nice to get away. The reason a lot of people go to these events is because it gives an opportunity to get away. But for you, when you're there, you're saying that you're possibly losing money. How important is it for you, though, when you think about it, okay, for me to go there, then it does give me an opportunity to engage more with my fans, and possibly then when I go home and stream, I may pick up, 50, 60 more people that are watching what I'm doing. Is it important for you to continue to engage with your fans at those live events?
From a pragmatic standpoint, there's absolutely no reason to go just to engage with fans. Engaging with people face-to-face usually doesn't give you more viewers. It's only people that watch you anyway.
Okay.
And there's very little, financially or personally to gain from it. Just from a pragmatic standpoint, like if I was looking, I'm just looking at my bottom line or whatever, realistically or philosophically or ethically or whatever you want to say, I really enjoy getting to see people. It's kind of fun, signing stuff for people and I try to make it a point when I go to events to be as personable as possible, because most programmers are really, really, really bad with that.
Yes, especially StarCraft 2.
Oh yeah, everyone included, Hawk D9, everybody. There are very few people, I think, that to the same extent that I do, kind of go to the way to try to sign things with fans or whatever. White Raw is really good.
Yes.
Machine is really good with it. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy getting to see people, because I mean, from my point of view, I definitely owe my success to the people that watch me. It's the only reason I make money. It's not from results or anything. So I like to be able to see people and to shake hands and to sign stuff and to kind of show people that I am grateful that they watch me.
Good.
Okay, great. Actually, one quick thing before we continue. I just wanted to let people know we're going to be doing Q&A towards the end of the show. So start adding me on Skype. My Skype ID is ChanmanV, and we'll do some call-in questions the last 15 minutes of the show. But continuing on, I wanted to ask you. I know a lot of people joke around that you're playing LoL more than you're playing SE2 these days, which is completely untrue. But you definitely play LoL to kind of wind down and kind of have some fun, right? Is StarCraft 2 kind of feeling like work to you at this point? Obviously it is your job, but I mean, are you still having as much fun playing or passion playing the game as you did before?
I mean, I play games. I've always liked to play games since I was a kid. Even if I wasn't streaming or doing anything like that, I'd probably still be playing StarCraft 2, just because I've invested so much time into it, and I am a pretty competitive person. So I mean, I don't know. I have some serious problems with the games, especially after playing other games. Now the problems I have with StarCraft 2 become a lot more apparent. But I mean, I'm still playing. I don't plan to quit anytime soon or switch games or anything.
Okay, I see.
I have just a question for you,
Cool.
Steven, because
I mean, we could start doing some.
wow.
Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to ask Steven real quick though. I mean, have you played? Are most of the games that you've played either mobile or RTS? Have you tried, FPSs or anything like that?
Not competitive, not anywhere close to a competitive level.
Okay.
It's it's a totally different set of skills, and I haven't played it at all, and I'm getting old, and I don't know if I could jump to completely. I would have to sink so much time into getting good at FPS games if I ever wanted to switch to that. Like, it would take, the amount of time would be unreal. Like,
Yeah.
I'd be more apt to switch to something like a MOBA or a different RTS before switching to FPS.
Right. Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah. I mean, I've played them for fun before. Like, I've played Modern Warfare 2 on PC and Xbox Center, but I'm nowhere near anything that would be even remotely considered good. So.
Okay.
Okay, great. Let's see. Why don't we go into? You guys mind taking some questions from the viewers?
Not at all.
Kind of go straight into Q&A here.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, sorry guys, I've been laggy this whole time. The hotel I'm at is like terrible. I mean, the down is like one meg and up is like half meg here, so it's like really bad. Let me start adding some guys here, and John, you might have to fix the overlays a little bit whenever we pull guys in.
I will try.
Okay. You'll try. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. We're gonna pull Henrik in here. All right, you can kind of see. They went a little crazy there.
Yeah, I'm not even quite sure how to fix it, but
I think in the other scene, just kind of start, making new screens. Oh, is this working? Shoot. Actually, I think you're gonna need to drag some in. Here, we got a question right here. Let me ask this, John. I think you're gonna have to drag some of these guys in because I can't drag them into there. Here's a question. It says, to the members of the show and the users in chat, why is it that we continue to show a double standard for ourselves in esports? We want this to be more heavily structured into a legitimate sporting scene. That we as viewers and members of the industry, especially in NA, accept poor player performance, average work ethic for players, and not allowing players to be held to a higher standard socially, as would with a professional athlete. I guess that was not really a question. I mean, what do you guys think of that? I mean, do you think the work ethic in right now for NA players is not really acceptable for being, a very competitive pro gamer?
well,
No, it's abysmal. The
Anybody?
average practice schedule is abysmal.
yeah. If Mr. Bitter was here, he'd tell you for sure that that's pretty much everything. I mean,
Yeah.
the practice.
In a game like StarCraft 2, it's 100% time. It's 96% time investment. People who invest more time are just always going to come out higher. And that's why Ukraine's are such a huge advantage right now over the foreigner scene.
Right. Okay.
I
John,
think it's just a worth. I was going to say, I think it's just a worth ethic in general. I mean, if you don't take yourself seriously enough, how do you expect other people to take you seriously?
Right.
Well, I think a lot of gamers think it's easy. That once they start winning a couple things, that they don't have to put the effort in to continue to get better. What they don't realize is that there's people right below them that are continuing to improve. And there's some 10-year-old kid out there right now that 3 years from now is going to be kicking everyone's ass. But and hopefully we'll find that person. But
Okay. So, John, I'm adding the guys into this channel, John. You're going to have to call them, though, because I can't call them since you started the Skype call. So, Henrik, actually, are you online here? Henrik?
Yep. Yeah, he's here.
Oh, sorry. Didn't actually realize.
No,
Do you
it
have a
works.
question for these guys? You have a question for these guys?
I'm more direct game questions though. More than also general.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Did-
Okay, sorry.
I'm confused.
Sorry about that, guys.
Did he have a
I-
question or not?
I don't think he did. So
All
why
right.
don't we pull in somebody else? This is kind
I'm
of.
sorry.
What was that? Let's see, here we go. So guys, whenever you Skype in, I mean, I'm gonna call you guys. So it's don't I guess don't type in your questions if you want to be called. Let's see, it's kind of like not going as smoothly as it normally does.
No, not at all. It's my fault.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure.
It's
Here we
okay.
go.
All right, Brandon Fu, here we go.
Brandon, are you there?
You're gonna have to call him,
Okay.
John.
There we
Just
go.
right click and call him. There you go.
All right, we're calling Brandon Fu.
Yeah. Oh.
It says call failed.
All right. Well,
I'll call
go on
again.
to the
We'll
next
try again.
person. We can take some questions in the stream chat too. while we're
Yeah, I
doing
think
this.
we're probably just best doing that.
Yeah, this is like a little too hard. Okay, I have another question here. Do you think that other games coming into esports, such as LoL and eventually Dota 2, will start to overshadow SE2 and I guess quote unquote kill the scene? I guess SE2 scene. I mean, you're not killing esports scene. It's another game that's doing well. Do you think LoL will overshadow?
I mean, LoL had a huge negative impact on World of Warcraft. I would say the LoL scene, and probably even, I can't speak for the Dota 2 scene, I don't know anything about the Dota 2 scene, but the LoL scene definitely overshadows StarCraft 2. The amount of tournaments available this year for LoL already overshadows StarCraft 2, so I mean, that's kind of already happened. In terms of whether it'll kill it off completely, I mean, only time will tell for that. I don't think a lot of the people that play StarCraft 2 are going to switch to LoL, so, I mean, they're kind of different games.
Well, it's normal. People get tired of the. There are very few games that have had a long, longevity to them. StarCraft is lucky enough to have that, but it's always going to taper it off. I mean, the number of users playing consistently in StarCraft 2 has gone down every. It goes down about every month. I think it's just going to happen. I mean, it's just going to be a game that rises, and then eventually something's going to go above and beyond that. I think that's just the way it's going to be.
Okay. Here's the question for Destiny. What do you think PvZ balance? Who does it favor?
What? It depends. I think it favors Zerg in the super early game. It favors Protoss in the mid game, and then it's a little bit favoring Zerg in the late game. I wouldn't say favors Zerg. It's really, really stupid for both sides in the late game.
Okay, here we go. Okay, guys, do you think that people that go cry to sponsors are actually concerned about the image of esports and gamers trash talking, or is it just that they feel some power, and they're playing stupid and trying to ruin the career of gamers, for example, Orb and Destiny?
Yeah, no one gives a fuck. Nobody that's sending me email gives a fuck. Like that's funny, but nobody gives a fuck. It's just a bunch of white kids being offended for no reason and whatever.
Yep, I agree. I think most of it's just they want to feel empowered, and it's like I said, it can be a huge problem if we're not careful.
Exactly. Okay, guys, start messaging in your questions.
Yeah.
We're not going to be taking calls today. Okay, here's one from Julian.
Well, there was a question that was asked earlier, and I wanted to bring it up. This is an interesting question. Why does professional sports like football, baseball, and such, why do they not advertise their prize pools, but esports seems to do it?
The reason... sorry?
No, go ahead. That's fine.
The reason why prize pools are advertised for esports is because that can be an incentive to draw people to play the game. No amount of advertising prize pool for the NFL is going to get you, or for the Super Bowl is going to get you to join the NFL, right?
Right.
If you found out you got $1 trillion for winning the Super Bowl for every player on the team, would that make you, suit up tomorrow and, go on the field and like start to run plays with friends? Like, that's never going to happen.
No.
For esports though, your primary market is also the people who are consuming the product, who are also playing. So,
yeah.
I mean, it makes more sense to advertise a prize pool there because then you get more people into the game and et cetera, et cetera.
And
I think
go ahead, Aaron.
I was just saying, it's just a different business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, it's totally different business. I mean, I think one of the things that I've always said is if we want it to be a sport, it's got to be treated like a sport, and it has to be accessible to everyone. Mm-hmm. And most of the games, let's be honest, that are played are not accessible to everyone. And I'm a firm believer that's why games like Counter-Strike and the Brood War have done well for so long, for so many years, because if you look in terms of on a global economic scale, the computers that can run those games for so many years have, those low-end systems are the systems that are what they consider top-end in small, tiny countries all around the world. Or South America, it's what they can afford. It's affordability, They can afford to spend $200 on a computer. They can't afford to spend $200 on an Xbox plus everything else you have to pay, in South America and continue to grow up. So I think that's a big thing. A lot of the games are just not accessible to the mass, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Okay. We got a question here from Julian. Do you think, for Destiny, do you think the skill and accessibility of LoL has allowed it to overshadow SE2? I mean, I guess I know a lot of people think that, or it's probably true that LoL is an easier mechanical game to play, right? Do you think that's the reason for I guess how popular it is?
I mean, yeah, it's more accessible. The complete and total noob can still have a lot of fun playing it, which I could be wrong, but I don't think you can say the same for StarCraft 2. It's a lot easier to just play that game and have fun, and as you're playing, you gain levels and you can buy runes, and maybe you like to play a champ a lot, so you buy a skin for a champ, and there's a lot of things to keep you interested, even if you just kind of play it casually. So, I mean, it definitely helps grow that raw user base, which is so important to making a game into a successful esport.
Okay.
Chris, there's a question here.
Okay,
It's
go for it.
interesting. Master Nook says, you say the esports partnerships are mainly about who you know and relationships, as Aaron mentioned. How does one first get started building relationships with people like Aaron and myself? So basically what he's asking, and this probably goes more to you, Aaron, is how do you feel people should go about creating relationships with you?
Buy me a drink.
That always works, actually.
Yeah, actually it does. Believe it or not, 90% of the time, I can tell you the first time I ever met Kim Rom. That was the first thing that I ever did. I mean, I knew who he was, and actually the first time we actually physically ever met and physically ever talked in person, I knew was about 8-9 months ago in Nevada. Or no, Phoenix. We were at an event together, and that was the first thing I did. I went to the bar. I said, "Oh, that's Kim Rom," because I knew who he was, and grabbed a drink. And I said, "I'm buying you a drink," and we started chatting from there. It's really just kind of starting to talk to just walk up and talk to somebody. It's really where it starts.
But it is. I mean, the demographic that we're dealing with here, a lot of the gamers, they sit behind computers and on keyboards all day. It is very difficult for them, even in a live event, to take that next step. And that's just, I think, just something that if you're really interested in creating a relationship with an organization or getting to know somebody at that organization better, you literally just have to do it. And if it starts with a cold email, which is what I call it when it's the first time you're contacting them, sometimes that's all it takes. I mean, if you really want to meet Steven, if you guys want to meet Destiny, you can't just sit on his stream all day and watch. If you want to meet him, you got to call him or send him an email or something. Say, hey, I want to meet you.
Right, watch out there.
Well, I'm not going to give your number out.
Actually, John, I think the first time we ever had a conversation was on my website a couple months back, and it was a really random conversation. I forgot what we started talking about, but we just started talking about some old AOL stuff. But you just have, again, I think that's what it comes down to. Just strike up a conversation, and start talking to them.
A lot of it is like you should think about it in terms of job interviews. Like when you listen to your teachers and everything, they tell you about like applying for your first job and blah blah blah, like set yourself apart, blah 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 blah. Like that stuff is really true. To consider that if you want a job doing something in this industry, like how many other thousands of people want the exact same job? How many people might have sent the same boring email with the exact same like, hey, I really want to help you, blah blah blah, email me back, try to do something to set yourself apart. This is a little bit picky on my part, but I really think that it's really, really important that if you want to get involved with the scene, try to do something where you're creating good content before you try to just jump in and, I don't want to say leech your name, before you just jump in and like, I want to be part of this, blah, blah, blah. Like, try to do something, whether it's like writing an article or writing or making good quality posts on Team Liquid. Like, if somebody were to email me, if somebody emails me like, hey, like, I really want to write on your website, like, please write me back.
Right.
It's like, okay, that's fine. If somebody says like, hey, like I really want to write on your website, I'm a blue poster on Team Liquid, go check out my thing. I've got 1,500 votes. Like something as simple or as silly as that. Like if you've got a good posting history on a website or something, if you're contributing somewhere or you're creating some kind of content somewhere, like, hey, like I really want to do this for you, go check out my YouTube. Like I release a video like every week. If you're doing something like content creation is very, very important if you want to get involved in the scene. Networking is really important, but having good quality content to back up your efforts to network is also equally important, I think.
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head with one word that you said there, though, which is contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even if that means volunteer, at something like Beyond Gaming or Cybersports Network, or volunteering to mod your channel, Stephen, that's a start, and that's where you do start to create the relationships. But you have to just start somewhere. I think that we have lost Chris, and it
Yes.
is. I'm pretty sure we've lost him for good. Uh, so, to be honest with you, guys, I think that's going to do it. So I guess we'll just start with you, Aaron. Let everyone out there know kind of how they can get in contact with you, what your website's all about. Just some shout outs real quick.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Twitter at BGAaron. Feel free to follow me. I tend to tweet some random stuff, but I do throw some jewels in there every now and then. I like to throw out some good marketing advice here or there, or talk about a lot of events that are going on. Definitely check out Beyond Gaming. We're hosting all sorts of tournaments all the time. You can go and create your own tournaments, create your own competitions with our software, and follow Beyond Gaming on Twitter and check our site out.
All right, good. And
All right, step back.
no, you're all right. We're doing shout outs now.
Okay, great.
So
Sorry about that,
I can
guys.
get to my son's soccer game. All right, Steven, go for it.
Thanks to everybody that watches me and supports me. I still stream on own.tv. My link won't show up on Team Liquid right now though, because I might have been mean to a mod. If you guys want to come over after this, I'll answer more questions just to pour viewers out.
Go to Steven's stream after this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks for Chris for having me on. Sorry,
As always, awesome. Yeah.
I'll go next and let you go last, Chris, and close it up. I guess I just want to continue to thank my staff and thank you, Chris, for putting this on. Honestly, it is really good exposure for me and what we're doing at CSN Cybersports Network. Just if you're wanting to know, we are a direct competitor with Beyond Gaming. That's a good thing. that is a very good thing.
I think. Wait. I think we do. Let's get that out in the open. Yes, in some ways we are, but I think we do things in two different ways.
Yeah, we have a different way of going about things. We focus on different things, but I think we're both helping the community. And I will say this. Companies like Beyond Gaming and Cybersports Network are exactly what's needed to help continue to grow esports. So continue to support those. You can check it out at www. Why do I add the W's? Nobody cares. cyber-sports.net. You can follow me on Twitter at CSN_John Clark. Oh, one more thing. Look for CSN partnering at the Gigabyte Esports Land event in Southern California. It's going to be a big deal. All right, that's my shameless plugs. All right, awesome. Chris, close us out.
I'm going to troll you on Twitter from now on, John.
That's fine.
I'm like, what's up, John? Hey, we're rival companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, hey, look what we're running. Oh, we're running one too. All right.
Exactly. Big thanks, obviously, to Stephen and Aaron for being guests today. I think the show was great, even with all the crazy lag issues that I was probably causing from being in the hotel. And John, for running the show today, you did a great job, obviously, for doing it.
The first time.
Appreciate it as always. Thank you all the viewers for obviously watching and watching us every week. Next week we're going to have David Ting from IPL on here. Obviously discuss a lot of things that they're doing over there, and hopefully discuss some issues too going on over there. But I think that's it. The only thing need to plug is my mods. Obviously, always big thanks to those guys. Doing a great job, and I guess Pro Corner this Thursday. Check it out. It's a regular time, 11 p.m. Eastern. Having an up-and-coming show with some guys you probably haven't heard of. So come check them out because they're up-and-coming guys. It's 2 guys from Team Nightmare. So hopefully you guys will tune in. Okay, I think that'll be it. I think that'll be the this climbing the ladder for today, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.
Bye.
See you later.
Mute. You muted?
Mute.
Oh my God.